The Princess of Pop, Britney Spears, recently spoke out about how she feels trapped in her conservatorship, which she's been placed in over a decade ago. Spears got into a conservatorship in 2008 after she faced a public health crisis. Her father, Jamie Spears, is currently in control over Britney's estate and her life choices, such as everything from if she can see her boyfriend to if she can remove her IUD. Hi, I'm Veronica Gail, and I recently sat down with lawyer Harriet Cohen to discuss what is legally binding Britney to her father and what her journey to being freed will possibly look like. Harriet, how are you today?
I'm very good, very good. How about yourself, Veronica?
Doing good. So we're just going to get into some of our questions. So for people who don't know, what is a conservatorship?
A conservatorship is a guardianship, and it's a legal mechanism that is set up for people who are unable to manage their own affairs.
So what types of people tend to end up in these conservatorships?
Very, very extreme mechanism, and very, very rarely used, but generally infamous when they are used. And the kind of people are older, demented people, people who cannot manage themselves, severe cognitive impairment, severe developmental disabilities, those kind of people.
Do family members usually run conservatorships?
Family members are frequently appointed as the conservator, but less so in the very infamous and famous cases where very wealthy people are involved. In those cases, you can have a conservator who's somebody who's been appointed by the court.
Why, once in a conservatorship program, is it so difficult to get out?
It is so difficult to get out because once the court and the government gets a hold of a person, particularly a person of wealth, there are agendas that never were contemplated by the people who came forward in the first place to try to help the conservatee, and the case takes on a life of its own.
What makes Britney's situation so unique?
Britney's situation is so unique because here is a woman, a young woman, a capable woman, a very talented woman who is making millions of dollars. She's not an old, demented person. She knows how to work. She knows how to sing. There are productions all around her. Her case is unique for a lot of reasons, in addition to what I just mentioned. The father, her father, ended up being her conservator. Who is this father? He's a man with severe issues of his own that are well known. He's a recovering alcoholic. There were temporary restraining orders when the mother and the father were having marital difficulties. He came in to become her conservator and to take over her life. Father taking over the life of an adult daughter, the mother of two children. Not only controlling where she sings, whether she sings, what she does, but also controlling whether she can have a full life as a woman. What has become extremely outrageous in the case of poor Britney is that she's really being forced to be sterilized. In a way, if this was a man, who was, and you don't see men getting conservators when they can work and sing. We've seen male performers who have substance problems, who have other problems, who have lifestyle problems. You haven't seen any conservators appointed for them.
Are there any regulations that her father has to follow?
He sets the regulations. If he and his lawyers set forth that this is what they think Britney ought to do, and they submit that to the judge, it comes to the judge with an aura of reasonableness. If he is proposing it, the court is going to assume that he has her best interests at heart and that what he proposes is going to be appropriate for her. So if he says she can't see her boyfriend, the court might think that's appropriate. If he says she can't take out her IUD and have a child, the court might think that's appropriate. It's a lawless part of the law.
How did Spears being a child of divorce affect the situation she's in currently?
It was not a pleasant or a pretty divorce. There were allegations of abuse by the father. He was a controlling kind of a man, and he was an alcoholic at that time. The fact that she ended up as the conservatee of this father, whom the mother found to be an abusive husband makes it even more complicated. And the very person who was the control person in the family that divorced in order to get a little freedom into the family. The mother couldn't live with this father because he was so difficult. And he was able to switch those controlling behaviors from the wife to the daughter. But with the daughter came millions and millions of dollars. Her father became her conservator of the person and the property. He was a double conservator.
How is the legal system stacked up against Spears?
The legal system is stacked up against conservatees generally. When it's a very wealthy person, it's very hard to get the conservatorship ended because there are many, many people with hands in that pot. The conservator has a lawyer. The lawyer sometimes has a lawyer. The conservatee has a lawyer. Sometimes there are adversaries trying to take the conservatorship away from that conservator and take it for themselves. That person will be a person with a lawyer. In the case of Britney, she is being required to pay every single fee for every single lawyer of everybody involved here. We are talking about multi-millions of dollars in legal fees that she has to pay because the conservatee's estate is what pays for everything.
So who is gaining in this situation besides Britney's father?
Oh, there are so many hands in this pot. There are multiple lawyers and multiple law firms. And we're not talking about small lawyers. We're talking about big, important law firms. This is a big, important case. Britney is a huge corporation. She generates multi-millions of dollars. She has to take her own person, her own self, into the venues. She has to sing, she has to perform, she has to create records, albums. And she has been doing all of that and providing huge amounts of wealth for so many people who are involved in her life. The one thing they haven't given her is freedom, freedom of action, freedom of deciding, does she want to sing or not sing and perform or not perform? Can she go out? Can she procreate? Can she have another child at this point? It's one thing to go to rehab, work with doctors, try to take your life into your own hands and move forward. It's another thing to have your life taken away from you, including the right to procreate, including the right to have a relationship, a personal relationship, good, bad, or indifferent. She's allowed to do that. This is a free country. With respect to children, she's allowed to have a child. Nobody can come along and say, this is one woman in this country who is not allowed to have a child. That's a terrible thing to take away that liberty. That is a fundamental right.
What can fans of Britney, if anything, do to help?
They can do lots to help, and they have helped. I saw today in today's New York Law Journal, there's a heading here called How Britney Spears Became an Icon for Reproductive Justice. And I'm reading that Planned Parenthood, the Planned Parenthood Action Fund is saying that this is the reproductive rights story of the day. It is just outrageous that she's not allowed to have freedom to decide whether or not to have a child. So reproductive justice is working in her cause. That certainly can help, can't it?
Is there anything else you'd like to add today?
Well, I think that going to the court of public opinion was the right thing for her to do. I applaud her for doing it. She knows how to get medical help. She can get medical help. She can get therapeutic help. And she intends to do that. She says she wants to have help, but she doesn't want to be the wholly owned subsidiary of the courts of Los Angeles, of her father. I believe that Britney is on the way to being freed. I believe she has been a prisoner. And I believe that the wheels of justice perhaps are going to turn in such a way that we're going to look at conservatorships, not only in California, but in New York and in all the other states. This is not unique to California. when there's a very, very wealthy conservatee, there are too many people interested in seeing to it that those conservatorships stay intact. I hope that she gets freed and that she can go on to live a happy and a healthy life.
Britney's future legal path is still unclear, but it is expected to be a rocky road for the pop star. Reporting for WSU News, I'm Veronica Gail.